Game introductions come in many forms. Souls games often have a trial by fire as an intro, a challenge which is possible to overcome, but not likely to be overcome by a new player. Demon's Souls, being something of a beta for all the Souls games that would later come, experimented a little with that concept, but hybridized it with a more traditional tutorial, possibly being the only tutorial to ever truly exist in a Souls game. We are using footage of the PlayStation 5 version of Demon's Souls, and sadly, the intro is actually made optional in this version. However, I do think there's many reasons you'd actually want to play it. So, you start a new game, and you create your character. Pick your class and a gift to start with. You then get a cutscene explaining in broad strokes exactly why the world is as terrible as it seems.
King Allant the Twelfth, by channeling the power of souls.
And then, you're into the gameplay. And unlike later Souls games, this little area you're in now, you can't come back to later in the game. And that is important as it plays into an aspect towards the end of this area. But as you start, there are messages on the ground to read, explaining how to use the various mechanics of the games in a very rudimentary way. And the early enemies you're fighting are not soldiers in armor. They are decrepit creatures, clearly victims of this world, likely not fighting you out of duty, but rather desperation. And after a bit of this, we will see the first Archstone. Now later on, these will be very important. However, right now, this one teleports you in a one-way trip. And here we see a better class of enemy. These are soldiers, wearing armor, and beyond them we get some even stronger, wearing full suits of armor with glowing blue faces. Being a tutorial area, these ones aren't too bad. But we should take from this that we'll encounter these later, and they will be much worse. We also have the opportunity here to find some different healing items. Crescent moon grass, the weakest of healing items, and a few half-moon grasses, as phases of the moon apparently very much affect the grass. But now we're greeted with the real point of this tutorial, the Vanguard Demon. And unlike later in the game, you only get one chance with the Vanguard Demon here. And most new players are simply going to run in and very quickly meet their end. Which, of course, leads to a trip to the Nexus and a cutscene.
Soul of the lost withdrawn from its vessel.
But it is actually possible to beat the Vanguard Demon here. It does take a lot of time, as this demon has a lot of hit points, and all of the starting classes don't hit all that hard. But if you manage it, you are rewarded with some souls, including a Grey Demon Soul. And you get to see another little area where there are some rewards to pick up off the floor. None of this is game-breaking, and all of this can be attained later at various points. But it is all useful for a new player early on. The last thing we get from beating the Vanguard Demon is we get to see one of the bosses from later in the game a little early. And we get a special cutscene where that boss just takes care of us with no effort. And then, of course, we wake up in the Nexus. And this intro works as a simple tutorial, but also as a singular opportunity to get a slight leg up at the beginning of the game. And you will never see that particular area again. You will encounter other Vanguard Demons and have other opportunities to get that Grey Demon Soul, and the various smithing stones you got will be available later. But having them right at the beginning is quite useful, as you could make a weapon a little better, and possibly give yourself a couple of extra levels. Nothing monumental, but in a Souls game, every little bit can help, and that is why Demon's Souls has a great intro. Please do subscribe, comment, like, and tell your friends.